Photographs. Where are the photographs? Maybe okay, screenshot. Oh, here we go. No, maybe I have something there that I can use. Study. Oh, about time. Oh, that one looks nice. But shit, why is that so? No. Yeah, let me put yearly. That way the images are a lot smaller. But how about pictures that for today? Oh, yeah, this might be. I miss. Anyway, just ran into an image of my son, which I haven't seen him in a long time. Maybe I should just get rid of them. Not get rid of them, I mean, just put them where I can't see them. Impressive. Time. Those images. Anyway, let me see. I have photographs of, let me see, some photos. If I can find some. Well, these video, no. Oh yeah, this video. I don't know what the hell that is. Oh. What the fuck was this? No way. What image was this? 11 minutes and nothing. Listen so much. Oh, Lord. I hope he's doing well. He's doing well. He's doing well. Hopefully he is. Okay? That's fine. I don't know, so many images I had that I could work from. And now I can't. It's like, let me do a little watercolor. What happened to all the images that I just, this whole week? Let me check this folder here, because I think I put all the photos in this thing here. Yeah, I did put that one of the old man, and that one. This was a pretty good one, because it has a lot of red. It does have a lot of red. To do that one in landscape. How would I do that? Well, let me see, how would I do that? You got the people. How would I do that? Let me see the people over here. But I prefer to do a portrait now. I want to do a portrait. I want to get into doing a landscape. Which I do need to do landscapes, because I have gotten really, I need more practice. Let's see what we have here. No portrait, nothing. How about this one over here? Anything here? Nothing. Portraits. What is this? What the hell is this? Okay, there's nothing here. Alright, I don't know, it's weird, because this whole week I have been putting images. Alright, like where the hell are they? I don't know. People upstairs make so much damn fucking noise. What the hell are they doing up there? There's still nothing. Portraits, nothing there. Nothing. Hmm. Hmm. That was a cute one. Let me see. I don't know how I would do an image like that. Oh, if I would do an image, then I would come this way. That right? Then come over here. Then we would this is yeah. No, the thing with this is that when you do it, it's a very light pencil. Right? And then here, this is gonna come, right? And this part. I don't wanna no, can't even see the mark. This is coming this way, right? Something like that on this eye. It's like babies, the faces, and I'm trying to get the likeness too. But to do it, when you do a baby, you have to do it very, I mean, I don't like them when they're too precise. You know, I like to keep a looseness, a freshness. Trying to see if I can capture that. I'll work on the nose and let me see. I need an eraser to adjust that. No eraser? I have no eraser here. Oh, here. The eraser's in here. Oh, here we go. Is that one gonna work? Oh, yeah, look. That's all. I got one. There you go. And this is another way. That's gonna go that way. This is gonna go right like that. And then the normal thing. Now the thing is to capture to do it in such a way that keep it real loose, but at the same time okay, let me see what happens with and let me just put this image make it smaller. I can still see it, but I can open up oops. Put that over here. Oops, what the hell? What the hell is all this? Like, where the hell is the... There you go. Where the hell is that thing came from? That's all this guy's talking about.
Senator Rand Paul is here right now. All right, so Senator, what are you guys going to do about this?
We're going to shut it down. I'm busily getting signatures from other senators. There is a way that we can get it onto the calendar, and there's perhaps a way we could actually get a vote. It's not very easy when the Democrats control things, but I'm going to do everything I possibly can to get a vote to defund this organization. Boy, is it not with amazement you see how far that they've come from Kennedy's Democrat Party. This is not your grandfather's Democrat Party anymore. So much for the marketplace of ideas. They have decided that they're going to determine what disinformation is. But my point to Mayorkas was this. We had a $32 million Mueller investigation to see if there was collusion between Russia and Trump. There wasn't any. And yet the Steele dossier, upon which they based this all on, which was given to Steele by Russians, it was Russian disinformation. If they can't admit that that's disinformation, it was propagated by CNN for years and years. If they can't admit that, how could they possibly do the job of policing disinformation? Now, I don't think it's a job that you could possibly do. So even if you could, and they admitted that it was disinformation, I'd be against policing CNN. People could turn the channel when they see that CNN doesn't care about the truth. But I would not police CNN. I'm against policing any news organization. The public can figure this out.
Yeah, and they are turning the channel because no one's watching. Their ratings are atrocious. Anthony Fauci, I don't know if you saw this, he was invited to lecture graduates about the dangers of untruths at the University of Michigan this weekend. Listen to what he said.
As you graduate and take the place in the wider world that will be yours to shape, do not shrug your shoulders and accept the normalization of untruths. Because if you do, lies become dominant and reality is distorted.
Wouldn't you just be so jubilant, tossing your little cap up in the air after listening to that guy, Senator?
Well, but here's the interesting thing. It's the same argument as the disinformation board. We have to decide what is true and what is not true. So, for example, I think that Dr. Fauci has promulgated untruth. He has normalized untruth. Number one, he has said that COVID treats every age the same, and the treatment should be the same whether you're 10 years old or 80-year-old. Everybody should get vaccinated 14 times. He's also said that masks work everywhere, and they don't really work in public. But he's also gone one step further. He says another untruth, which is that booster vaccines should be given to adolescents. There's now a significant amount of scientific data and studies, including large multi-million person studies, showing that you have an increased risk for an inflammation of the heart the more vaccines you give young people. We combine that with the fact that 75% of young people have already been infected. He discounts this completely and says, oh, you should never even be tested to see if you've had COVID. Well, I think that would be the logical thing you would do. So the biggest purveyor, I think, of untruths right now in public health is Dr. Fauci. So when someone says we're going to stop disinformation, well, they can't even agree to what the truth is. That's why we have a debate, a robust debate, scientists debate, journalists debate, politicians debate. We arrive at the truth through disputation. Anybody who says we can do it by edict is somebody completely unaware of the idea and the concept of freedom of speech.
Did you see the shot of Dr. Fauci with no mask on next to no mask on Lemon? He said, don't go to the correspondence dinner, but he went to the pregame.
Yeah.
And partied with all these guys in close quarters with no mask. Your reaction?
This is where they lost the public. All of the hypocrisy, all of the, Governor Newsom showing up to the fancy French Laundry and all the fancy restaurants. They lost the public when they started not behaving the way they were telling us to behave. And all you have to do, and you want to see a vote, go to an airport. It is voluntary. You can wear a mask. You know how many people are wearing a mask? 97% of people are not wearing masks because they believe that Fauci telling them to continue to wear a mask is not true, not valid, and it doesn't fit their risk assessment. So when individuals are free, 97% of them reject what Fauci says.
All right, maybe he was just holding his breath like the LA mayor. Could be. All right, Dr. Rand Paul, Kentucky, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.
some of the things.
Inflation in this country, do you take any responsibility or policy?
I think our policies help, not hurt.
President Biden taking zero responsibility for record high inflation and actually claims he's helping Americans. Somebody at the White House forgot to tell Biden the facts, and the polls say otherwise. Americans are getting crushed by an avalanche of economic disasters. Gas prices just hit another record high today. More Americans are struggling to make ends meet. Parents can't even find baby formula. The president making it clear he has no plan to fix all the problems, and instead, he's blaming the usual suspects.
There are two leading causes of inflation we're seeing today.
Trump, right?
The first cause of inflation is a once-in-a-century pandemic. A second cause,
That's
Mr.
bullshit,
Putin's war in
because we
Ukraine.
have those issues.
We saw in March that 60% of inflation that month was due to
It's
price
so bullshit.
increases
What
at the
happened
pump.
to...
Biden also hammering this phantom ultra MAGA agenda the GOP hasn't even signed on to, while pushing a talking point the Washington Post has called a lie.
Senator Rick Scott, Wisconsin, a member of the Senate Republican leadership, laid it all out. The ultra MAGA plan put forward by congressional Republicans to raise taxes on working families, lower the income of American workers. I never expected the ultra MAGA Republicans who seem to control the Republican
This
Party
guy
now
is so stupid.
to have been able to control the Republican Party.
I want to listen to what Dana has to say about ultra MAGA, but first let's listen to what Jen Psaki had to say about how this whole phrase came to be.
Oh, Lord. Are they still
It's
with
the
that?
president's phrase, and the president made those comments himself just last week, as you know. And I think what has struck him is how extreme some of the policies and proposals are, that a certain wing of the Republican Party that is
Sure,
taking
he's
up
around
too
all you
much of the
freaking
Republican
liberals
Party
feeding all that
are
bullshit to
for.
him.
So to him, adding a little ultra
Of
to it,
course.
give it a little extra pop.
It's like
Give it a little
magic.
extra pop.
I can't stand it because I feel like you're walking down this aisle at the convenience store or the CVS and looking for something that would say ultra MAGA, and it's gross to me. I can't stand it, and I can't get it out of my head.
What product
and
are
I
you
want
talking
them to stop. And just because he comes out and says ultra MAGA 20 times is not going to make inflation go away. They can also say Rick Scott 100,000 times. That guy is eating alone at the lunch table. Basically, there's nobody in the Republican Party that signed on to his plan. He can have his plan, and he has every right to try to push it. But by no means does the ultra MAGA group actually support it. That's absurd. Also, they say that Rick Scott wants to raise taxes, and that's so extreme. They want to raise taxes. Why don't they jump on board the Rick Scott agenda? The choice versus a referendum. That's exactly what you're going to hear me say 100 times. As many times as they say ultra MAGA, I am going to say that because they know this from the Obama-Biden years of 2010 and 2014, where they lost seats. If it's a choice between Biden or Trump, that's what the team wants here. That's what the Biden team wants. But everybody is dealing with inflation every single day. It's a referendum on the president. That's what the midterms are about. They can try to make it a choice. It's going to be very difficult. Last thing, if I, as a communications person, was planning on having my boss go out and give a big speech about lowering gas prices, and I wake up in the morning and all the headlines are like, oh, AAA just said it's the record high gas prices. And you actually come out and you have built something as a new plan, and you give an entire speech that has nothing new in it. Then you have lost the confidence of the people who are turning to you, hoping that you will provide them some relief, and they know it is not coming.
Greg Gutfeld. Why do you look so impotent?
I think what you're trying to say about ultra MAGA is that it's a Trojan horse.
Exactly what I'm trying to say.
I was holding that in for so long.
Oh, you could have jumped in. That's a good one.
So what's, and then you have Senator Scott, right, responding. And Senator Scott, this is like really harsh. It's even harsh by my standards. He said that Biden is incapacitated, incoherent, he's unwell, he's unfit, he's confused, he's incapable. Those are all the words Rick Scott used. And it's like somebody threw a can of paint on Biden and nobody's helping him wipe it off. It's like there's no responses to that. Biden just responded and said Rick Scott's not well. But it's like nobody is bothering to defend him. Because all of those things could be argued persuasively. And I'm with you about this MAGA phrase. I think it shows how little game they have. that no one's picking it up and they're just laughing at it. It's definitely not Let's Go Brandon, which was genius because of its subterfuge. And also, I mean, it's not visual like Crooked Harry. Crooked Harry?
Crooked Harry. Dirty Harry.
Dirty Harry. So anyway, it's like a loser who chooses their own nickname and nobody's picking it up. The problem with Joe is that Joe actually looks great in his suit. When he puts on the bomber jacket and the aviator glasses, he looks like the head of the airplane flight crew who's gotten mistaken as the pilot. You know, he should be welcoming the passengers and messing up the kid's hair and giving the little wings to the little girl. He should not be in the cockpit. And that's the problem. The Democrats have realized he's in the cockpit. You got to get him out.
Yeah, there's no game with Ultra MAGA, and I don't think if you are MAGA, you're not like, oh, Ultra MAGA, he got me. Janine, how do you think this is going to play?
I don't think it's going to play at all. And what I want to know is, I mean, he says his policies have helped more than they've hurt. I mean, where's the disinformation board when you really need it? I mean, you know, nothing that he says is true. And this Ultra MAGA plan, I mean, besides the fact that Ultra is supposed to, like, gin it up and tee it up so you can really hate, if you hate MAGA, you really hate Ultra MAGA. You know, but I spoke to several senators, and they said nobody signed on to Rick Scott's plan. Nobody. And that means nobody. It's never going to make the floor. Mitch McConnell doesn't like it. Rick Scott's a junior senator from Florida. Who cares? So Joe Biden is comparing his plan to nothing. But what makes me crazy about Biden is he says, we're going to plan to reduce the prescription drug prices. You are? We'll do it. You've got the House, you've got the Senate, you've got the Oval. When are you going to do this stuff? All he can do is he's just sharpening the rhetoric toward the Republicans, and everybody says, but gas still costs now $4 or $5, depending upon where you live. Nothing's changed.
Did you see anything different in the speech today, besides the sharp partisan attacks?
Well, we're getting into the political season. We're heavy into it. I do think this Ultra MAGA thing, your views around the table are all respectable and understandable, but I think it could be something that sticks. If you look at what happened in Ohio, J.D. Vance wins the primary. More than two-thirds of the Republicans voted against J.D. Vance in that primary. Rick Scott, he's the head of the Republican Senate Campaign Committee. He's a junior senator, but he's been tasked with, and Dana and I both know that role. That is a role that is important to Republicans winning back the Senate this go round. If he has a plan that differs from Mitch McConnell, if there were a Democrat that had a different plan than Biden, we would be talking about it negatively, rightly so, and I'd be criticizing. This guy has a different plan than Mitch McConnell, who I think is as effective a minority leader and arguably a majority leader as we've seen. Look, we need to be honest. The pandemic and the war have increased fuel and energy prices. I would have respected the president's message even more and been more credible if he said, look, we're going to increase energy production here at home. Oil and natural gas production have to be up here as we think about how we, going forward, address these challenges and eventually get to a green energy platform in the country. But until then, we've got to produce more fossil fuels. And last, we had to raise taxes on billionaires. Anybody that's not for that, I'd be ashamed of myself. If I were, I'd be happy to pay more taxes. We had to raise the carried interest tax. Democrats, this is one thing I agree with you about. We've had the majorities for a while. Democrats have had the majorities in the House and Senate. Obama had it, and now Biden. And they've yet to raise taxes, or they've yet to raise the carried interest tax. That's the tax that allows a group of investors who are investing other people's money to enjoy a different tax when they make money. When I make money,
do you know
I pay
how much
regular taxes.
millionaires get? 40%. 40% of their currency, of their money goes towards taxes. 40%. Then if you have an agent, 5%. For your agent, 5%, just for your agent, just for the job, and then he has to get his attorney to do all the paperwork, which they're buddies, that's another 5%. Then another 5% to make it 15%. So 40, 50, 60, that's 70% that's gone. 70% end up getting, 70% getting up. You get nothing. And I'm poor. I mean, I shouldn't be defending them, but
after first ignoring and excusing, and in some cases even openly being supportive of the 574 violent riots in the summer of 2020, dozens dead, thousands of cops injured, millions of property damage.
If you have 50
People like
billion,
Kamala Harris
40% of
holding a
50
veiled in
billion,
Minnesota, praising the LAPD and the defunding
or
efforts
30
there.
million.
And then, of course, hypocritically spending
It's a lot of
every
money.
waking moment of every day obsessively condemning the riot on January 6th. And, of course, ignoring the core issue of why Nancy Pelosi and Mayor Muriel Bowser failed to make use of the up to 20,000 National Guard troops that Donald Trump had authorized as required by law 2 days prior to keep the peace, as also requested by the Capitol Police Chief repeatedly. Democrats are now reversing course once again, and they are supporting acts of political violence. As we speak, far-left agitators, they're trying to harass, intimidate U.S. Supreme Court justices and coerce them into saving Roe v. Wade. It is a disgusting, repulsive, despicable attempt to destroy the independence of our nation's judiciary. And the silence and the tacit approval from the Biden administration and Joe Biden and Democrats, frankly, that's equally repulsive. This week, Justice Alito and his family, they were forced to flee their home after rioters published Alito's address and then made plans to show up at his front door. By the way, they showed up. Coming up, our own Sarah Carter will join us live from the scene of a so-called demonstration that just took place outside of Alito's home. But sadly, it's not just Justice Alito. Over the weekend, multiple Supreme Court justices and their families were targeted at their own homes by pro-abortion activists. Let me be clear. This is never okay. All of our public officials, both sides of the aisle, must be safe, must be protected from political violence and intimidation because it's never acceptable. On this show, we condemn all of the rioting, all 574 riots in the summer of 2020. We condemn violence on January the 6th. I did it real time on my own radio show and that night on this show. And now we condemn the left's violence against the Supreme Court and pro-life Americans everywhere. Over the weekend in Wisconsin, the headquarters of a pro-life group was attacked. A Molotov cocktail was thrown through a window into an office, causing considerable damage. And look at your screen. This threatening message was spray painted on the building, quote, "If abortions aren't safe, then you aren't either." A church in Colorado also defaced by pro-abortion vandals. And in New York, St. Patrick's Cathedral was surrounded by protesters hurling insults at anyone who went inside. And in Los Angeles, rioters dressed as handmaids stormed into a Catholic church service, shouting profanities and pro-abortion rhetoric. And in Washington, D.C., 2 Catholic churches on Capitol Hill requested extra police presence after one left-wing group threatened to, quote, burn the Eucharist. Now, naturally, many Democrats, their friends, the
These
media
people are
mob,
evil,
they're
my
applauding this
God.
kind of
These
violence.
people
I guess they only condemn violence if they
burn the
confine it
Eucharist,
somehow
my
to something
God.
Republican or conservative. In a statement, the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, applauded these so-called protesters
Look at
for
that.
using their righteous anger to march and to mobilize in front of justices'
Disgusting.
houses. And get this, one reporter explicitly called for more violence, tweeting a link to the Wisconsin attack along with the caption, quote, "More of this. May these people never know a moment of peace or safety until they rot in the ground." And meanwhile, the wannabe politician in California called for Kavanaugh's home and all of his possessions that they be burned in front of him. The rhetoric on TV was even worse. Take a look.
Violence is always over the line. But there are real questions and conversation today about protests outside Supreme Court justices' houses, particularly Justice Kavanaugh. Where do you think that line is?
I think for a lot of people, a conversation about civility feels like it misses the mark when constitutional rights that you believe that you had for over 50 years are about to be overturned.
I mean, I suppose if the justices don't like the First Amendment, they could just drive to another state where the legislature has determined that the constitutional right to privacy applies, right? I mean, that is what they're telling women to do if they want to control their own bodies, right?
All of these things that we, say might happen if abortion gets banned, if abortion becomes illegal, they do happen. This isn't a theory. We don't need to speculate. We have actual facts.
Go use protection.
What happens.
Use
Roe's overturned,
protection.
abortion's not
Use
getting banned, and it's
protection.
not going to be illegal. That is a big lie. We'll get to that in a second.
Use
Now, believe it or
protection.
not, it actually gets worse. One deranged person over at
I
MSDNC
mean,
saying she'd
if
like
it's
to make love
important to
with
you,
a
it's
Supreme
because
Court
you're,
leader and then joyfully
I
abort
mean,
the fetus. We'll play that
you
disturbing
alright
clip
with the,
coming up.
with, you
But
know,
maybe worst of
man,
all,
how
for
can
more
a
than a week,
woman
the White
that
House
is okay with
completely
killing her
and
child
utterly
could
refused
ever
to
make a good
condemn
wife
what is the
or a good
stalking
mother?
and the outright intimidation and doxing of
How?
Supreme Court justices. Listen to Jen Psaki repeatedly excusing and supporting the protests at the homes of Supreme Court justices where they have children and they have friends and loved ones
I
and
mean, the
neighbors.
mother's to protect the
Really?
child,
You
right?
support this,
So,
Joe?
how
Take a
can
look.
you protect the child if you're allowing someone to chop it up? That's not, I don't know, I don't agree with that.
Peaceful protest? No, peaceful protest is not extreme.
Some of these justices have young kids, but their neighbors are not all public figures. So,
Oh,
what the
Lord.
president think about waving off activists that want to go into residential neighborhoods in Virginia and Maryland?
Peter, look, I think our view here is that peaceful
Peter.
protest, there's a long history in the United States and the country of that.
So he doesn't care if they're
There you
protesting
go.
outside the Supreme Court or outside someone's private residence.
I don't have an official U.S. government position on where people protest.
Yeah.
Imagine if conservatives started giving out the addresses
I gotta
of
do the
prominent liberal
fingers. Let
Democrats
that dry.
and saying, go protest in front of their house, do it peacefully.
Yeah, that's, you don't
Okay?
do that. You don't go to
After a
someone's
weekend of violence,
house.
Psaki was forced to issue this tepid
That's
statement.
not right.
The president strongly believes in the constitutional right to
You shouldn't
protest,
do that.
but that should never include violence, threats, or vandalism. Judges perform an incredibly important function in our society, and they must be able to do their jobs without concern for their personal safety. So why don't you tell your supporters, Joe, to stay away from their private
Well,
homes?
residential
And Jen,
areas
what about the so-called
should, where
protesters
people live,
stalking now Supreme
that's
Court
stalking,
justices
yeah.
at home? Care to say anything about that? Apparently not. Take a look, you decide.
You suggested that peacefully protesting outside the homes of judges and Supreme Court justices is part of
Let me see what she says.
freedom of expression and part of what we do in the United States. There's a law in Virginia that actually prohibits protests outside private residence, even when done peacefully. So I'm wondering if any sort of
Let me see what she says.
outside private homes might follow that law and other laws that get enforced in the country.
We're certainly not suggesting anyone break any laws. I would note that the president's view has long been, and I tweeted this earlier this morning and repeated and made a number of these comments last week as well, that violence, threats, and intimidation have no place in political discourse.
And I'm sure if something happened, you'd probably call it an insurrection, right, Jen? Do you really think, do you really care that Supreme Court justices are getting stalked, harassed, intimidated this way? Do you think that you care about churches being vandalized as we witnessed this weekend? Imagine if we flipped the script. Imagine if conservatives were stalking, harassing liberal Supreme Court justices, which they never should do. Could you imagine the outrage? Imagine the hysteria? The hypocrisy is off the charts here. And of course, Democrats, they're all hypocrites because they have almost no principles. They were virtually silent with 574 riots in the summer of 2020, but they do want to talk about the one riot because they can use it for political purposes. And think about this, for several years, Democrats tried to weaponize your government and force all Americans to get vaccinated, then boosted again, even though we had breakthrough cases. Millions of Americans lost their jobs because of that mandate.
Yeah, a lot of people
Millions
lost
more
their
were
jobs
turned away
right
from
now.
restaurants and stores and shut out. My body, my choice didn't seem to exist to the left when
Yeah.
it came to vaccines.
Yeah.
That same principle, well, we're not going to
Yeah.
apply that to abortion.
Yeah,
Still, at
it's
the end
true.
of the day, abortion will be legal across the country. All the hysteria, all the hyperbole is false, even if Roe v. Wade is overturned. So the idea that if Roe is overturned, that it will somehow end abortion in America is now the big Democratic lie. Democrats need a good distraction for the midterms, a way to drive out turnout and excite their base, and their radical base is lapping it up, and I fear this can go from bad to worse. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.
Power these brushes, and then I'm gonna do the hand. this over here?
It was a weekend of threats, protests, and even arson, as critics accused the White House of taking way too long to condemn the potential for violence. Far-left activists ramping up their rage against the Supreme Court after the leaked draft opinion on Roe versus Wade. Protesters chanting outside the homes of Justice Brett Kavanaugh and Chief Justice John Roberts on Saturday. Another one is planned for tonight outside the home of Justice Samuel Alito. And a pro-life group's headquarters in Wisconsin attacked with 2 Molotov cocktails, vandals spray painting graffiti that reads, "If abortions aren't safe, then you aren't either." Police are investigating the incident as arson. The White House questioned over why it waited to speak out against the violence.
Does the president plan to condemn the leak of the Supreme Court draft opinion or the doxing of the justices now that we've seen violence unfold?
Well, I would say that we have been clear, and the president's position has long been, that we should not see protest that takes the form of violence, that takes the form of vandalism.
Where's this violence coming
and that
from?
threatens anyone. We have not seen violence or vandalism against Supreme Court justices. We have seen it at Catholic churches. That's unacceptable. The president does not support that. We have seen it at some conservative organizations. That we don't support that.
Speaker Nancy Pelosi adding her voice to the fight over abortion. She's praising protesters using righteous anger to march and mobilize over the end of Roe. And some in the media not concerned with potential threats against Supreme Court justices.
Wow.
I think for a lot of people, a conversation about stability feels like it misses the mark when constitutional rights that you believe that you have
No, violence
for over
is not
50
good,
years
never.
are about to be overturned.
Never.
The justices have security.
And then other justices are saying,
We
you have
have
no
different
right
opinions,
to stand
but
up
to hurt
and
one
freely
another
peacefully
is
protest
pure
outside of our
evil.
homes. We
It's
have a
pure
right to
evil.
privacy. Well, women have a right
Pure
to privacy
evil.
as well. And women have a right to
And
privacy with their bodies.
it has no
Okay,
place
so now we have our Jesse Waters, our very own Jesse Waters is
in
back. Good to
either
have
party.
you here, and people have been anxious to hear what you think about the leaked draft and the aftermath.
Thank you. Well, first, I just want to thank everybody for their support and everybody here.
Because
on
it
the
really
table.
shows
Thank you for the
how
bourbon. I only had a few drinks before the show today. I know what people are going to say.
who you are as a
You went to
person. I
people's
mean,
homes. I did, but there's a difference.
what was
I
the
like to elucidate,
statement
not to
that
intimidate.
they
There's one guy
made
with a
before
microphone
they?
shows up, asks a polite question, and then leaves. It's a lot different than having a mob of angry,
What was it?
radical
This
activists
sounds pretty
screaming
evil.
at the top of their lungs at nighttime while the kids are home. That's different, and that's what I want to make clear right now. I might have had my collar up. That was probably the most flagrant thing I did. Terrible. The White House gave license to this. Remember last week they didn't really condemn it, and now you see it's gone full-blown crazy outside. I think Alito had to leave his house. He's in an undisclosed location.
Wow.
This is from the same crowd that bailed out the rioters. This is from Mad Maxine Waters, no relation, who said to get up into people's faces. And, you know, Pelosi didn't condemn this. She gave license to it. So they're going to turn the midterms into a referendum on Roe, and that's fine because they have nothing else that they've accomplished. And the media's going to bang this drum because they don't want to report on crime or the border or inflation. They have to do this. It has to be a culture war. And so just like the rage that they stoked over race in the summer of 2020, they're going to stoke the abortion rage this summer. It's going to be rage versus reason because we all know it's going back to the states. States can figure it out themselves. That's fine. Abortion is sacred to the left. What that means is this is a religious situation. This is a religious war to the left. Nothing means more to them than this abortion situation. So if you think a Molotov cocktail or graffiti or surrounding some justice's home is a big deal, that's nothing. Wait till the thing drops this summer. It is going to get so much worse. But we all have to remember this. In this country, I know it's a very tender issue. First trimester, people are pretty forgiving about abortion. They are, if you look at the polling. After those first couple weeks, though, they don't want to have anything to do with abortion, and everybody needs to focus on how the country feels, and that's how it feels.
One of the things that they felt, Greg, was, this is a quote from administration officials, tremendous passion, and therefore it was okay. And they waited until today to actually say, oh, actually don't commit violence.
Well, not only is it illegal in, I believe, all states, you're also a jerk. You know, imagine if a producer at The Five decided to change the format and didn't tell you. Would you go to Megan's house Doc, I mean, that's just society. I mean, when you think about it, personalize it, think about how mentally unstable you are going to somebody's house because you're upset at them for something either political or it's something to do with your job. And you can know, Greg, this is different. This is about abortion and the Supreme Court. Well, it's exactly the same thing. You go to somebody's house in order to intimidate and threaten them, you're a jerk. And any journalist, I don't know who that person was on CNN, if she was a journalist, not sure, or anybody on CNN, how stupid they are. Because if you condone this, like that, like saying, like, you know, talking about civility doesn't work, then you're opening the door for that to visit you, your home. And we have this, I call it mutually assured civility, MAC. That's kind of understood. It's implied that that's what we do in life. But once you, like, the left does this a lot. They open the door for stuff. And then when the stuff happens, they're like, oh my God, you're doing it, but you just did it. Maxine Waters told people to get people's faces. Chuck Schumer threw out these threats about Kavanaugh, remember that? And then it's like, oh, and then they blame attacks on like Chris Rock on Donald Trump. It's like they somehow repeat debunked lies, like this is going to lead to the banning of interracial marriage, which we know is just laughable. It's easily debunked, but they are under the assumption that no one's actually going to read the opinion and find out. This is exactly what they did with the Fine People hoax. They want to rile up people so that they get into a state of irrational fear, so they hit the streets and intimidate people, and then you have to spend a couple of years and work backward and go, well, this never happened. This isn't real. This has not happened. It's going back to the states. Abortion isn't being made illegal, blah, blah, blah. Bill Maher was amazing. Did you see him when he was talking about it? He was like, he was basically learning in real time, literally, about abortion. He's like going, most of the people who are pro-life are women, and you know, and abortion laws are far stricter in Europe than they are here. I don't understand.
Jay, what about the intimidation factor at like a justice's house? Is that something that, one, you could, from the White House, you could say that's wrong, but also from the Justice Department, you could say we're going to arrest you.
You know, if only the Attorney General would act against the people who are violating a federal code the way he tried to act against parents of children in schools, calling them domestic terrorists. I mean, we would have some sense of equity here, but there is no equity because the left traffics in rage. But the statute is 18 U.S.C. Section 1507. It says picketing or parading, whoever with the intent of interfering with or obstructing or impeding the administration of justice. And that's what they're trying to do, folks. They're trying to obstruct the administration of justice. They don't want this decision to be the final decision. And with the intent of influencing a decision, the decision with a judge, and I'm trying to cut through this, resorts to a demonstration in or near a building or residence, and they're talking about judges shall be fined or imprisoned to not more than 1 year. You know, if Psaki and Joe Biden were so anti, you know, this kind of behavior, why did they call out the Department of Justice or the FBI and say, even with the Molotov cocktail going off where was it, in Wisconsin, saying, you know, we're going to send the federal agents out. But I got to tell you something. I am a Catholic, okay? And there was something that, and I'm pretty tough, but there was some of the language that they used that was so incredibly offensive to me. And I respect the First Amendment and free speech. Let me be clear on this. But when they say, keep praying because we will be burning your Eucharist, stop your rosary and keep praying. We're going to remain outraged after this weekend. And then they're singing, thank God for abortions. You know, and everything they do is hypocritical because on the one hand, they're saying that this decision is a threat to democracy. They're so stupid, they don't understand that the Supreme Court has said we're going to send it back to the state so it can be an issue of democracy, so that you can vote depending upon what you believe. The Supreme Court didn't say it was unconstitutional. They said let the people decide. And finally, I think the outrage is even worse when they say, you know, they show the hangers and all that, you know, and that this is how people die, this is how people die. Well, you know, I don't want to get into, you know, when does life begin and all that, although you did reference it, Jesse, and I think most people would agree with the, you know, the first, second, and third trimester, the way you analyzed it. But you want to know, you want to use a hanger? How about you take a picture of an abortion, of a fetus being pulled apart? Let's not go there. Let's try to have an intelligent discussion. And when Clarence Thomas says we won't be bullied, their response is bully them more. They tee themselves up. The anger, the intent is there. Use the law, use the statute.
So it's all good too. Harold,
First
last
of all,
word
happy
to you.
birthday.
Thank you.
On a lighter note here, two things. One, violence has no place in politics. We've seen anti-abortion activists. We've seen those who are opposed to certain things being taught in schools. We now see this nonsense. And it's no longer nonsense. When you can't wake up outside your home as a judge or a justice because people are outside threatening you. This one-upmanship we have in politics may have to stop. The White House and others should call this out, just as Republicans should call out violence when it happens or when the language is heated on the other side. Jesse, I happen to think your analysis is right, and welcome back. I think that we have Casey on top of Roe, and I hope the conversation can return to the facts and to the law here. And whatever the court decides to do, I hope they don't overturn Roe. I frankly hope they don't give it back to the states because I don't want a patchwork. But Judge, if they do, I'm an American. I can live with what the court says, and there's politics behind everything, and that judges and justices are chosen by politicians or by presidents and Democrats. If they want to change this, they're going to have to do this at the ballot box. But first and foremost, stop the violence. Stop the protesting outside of justices and judges' homes, much like I wanted people to stop threatening school board members with violence. It has no place in American politics. This is archaic, it's brutal, and people who do it should be arrested.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.
Here we are. All right. Happy Monday, everyone. I hope you had a lovely birthing person's day. I dressed in drag to get half-price mimosas at brunch. It was worth it. But other people, who I call jerks, went to a judge's house to protest on behalf of abortion. It seems like an ironic thing to do on a Mother's Day weekend. Cheer for abortions, which is what happened.